600 wins, 6 Georgia State championships, 16 regional championships, 2-time National Coach of the Year, first team from Georgia to win the City of Palms Classic, the nation's #1 high school tournament, first team in Georgia history to attend the Dick's Sporting Goods National Tournament of Championships. He's produced numerous NBA players and professional basketball players all over the world. It's real basketball talk. It's real help and real life with Coach Doug Lipscomb on the BG Podcast Network.
And welcome to Real Life Basketball. Yours truly, Darren Sutherland, with the coach, Doug Lipscomb, here once again. Coach, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing well.
Real Life Basketball brought to you by our friends at Carriage Automotive Group that are presenting the Carriage Classic coming up December 2nd at Milton High School with great teams like Riverdale versus Milton, Jonesboro versus Pebblebrook, Shiloh versus Langston Hughes, Johnson of Savannah versus Lithonia, Trinity Christian versus Holy Innocents, and going to be a good day of basketball. Don't you agree, Coach?
I agree. The game between Rockdale and Milton will be our last game of the night. Home team. We'll see how they play.
And you know, some of these teams have already started off with a great year and having some good things. Folks, if you've never listened to Real Life Basketball before, what are you in for? Well, the coach brings into the effect 600 wins, 6 state championships. He won things like Palms Classic down in Florida. He coached the McDonald's All-American team. He's coached pros. He's coached All-Americans at every level. Isn't that right, Coach?
Yes, that's true. And the thing I like about this show is that we can talk openly and keep it real.
Keeping it real, that's what it's all about. I often tell folks, and people have said, describe to me your show. And I'll start describing it this way on the air and keeping it real. It's kind of like if you were talking hoops on the front porch in Kentucky or Indiana or Carolina or even here in Georgia where we do the show from you know, who's the best in the small gym to talking in the barbershop, Coach, of who's the best in the big gym. Wouldn't you agree?
Most definitely.
It's where the worlds collide, and everything happens 92 feet, and it's an awful fun story. I want you to remain listening today. Stacey Davis from NYC Hoops is going to be a part of the show today, and guys, she's going to talk about the FBI investigation that is unreal. Stick around because some of the info, naming names, talking, telling things of what's going on. Coach, we did the interview earlier. People need to listen, do they not?
She's very knowledgeable of basketball.
And
yes.
People are going to be surprised at what she says, I believe.
Very, very surprised.
Hey, and for those of you that like a little bit of SEC football, wait to hear what she says about football and this thing because apparently the FBI ain't stopping, so you'll want to listen to the interview. But let's get right to it, Coach. Last week we mentioned this. We interrupted the show, I think it was, talking about, and we'll touch on this as we get started, but LeVar Ball, his son got out of jail. The other 2 freshmen from UCLA got out of jail. I've heard different opinions on this, on what should happen, what shouldn't happen. Cody, I'm even going to bring you in the mix on here, our intern. Cody, you're about those guys' age. What do you think the punishment for those UCLA players ought to be? What are you thinking?
Well, personally, I was kicked off a college team for a whole lot less.
Yeah.
I don't think they should play basketball this year.
Yeah.
If UCLA wants to revisit it in the off season, that's one thing. I personally don't want to. I wouldn't want them playing for my team this season.
Hey, I'm the same exact way. If I'm Coach Alford, you know what? Guess what? I'm going to lose some games because I got 3 top players out. But you know what? The guy should have had it a little bit better. Coach, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were coaching UCLA, and I know everything's different, circumstances and time and place is different. You're in a foreign country. They get arrested. It's a proven fact that they done it. I mean, we know that. They've admitted they've done it. They've apologized for doing it. What do you think UCLA should do?
Well, first of all, I disagree with both of you all because I can say that from perspective that I've made mistakes, and I'm sure most of the people listening have made mistakes. I believe that when you ask for forgiveness, you should be forgiven. At the same time, they're young, and they're going to have to live with this situation for the rest of their lives. But I think to deprive them and say they can't go to college at UCLA and play basketball, I don't think that's the way to treat the situation. I mean, like I say, we all make mistakes, and Coach, there should be some type of punishment.
But Coach, I'm going to differ with you here. I'm going to take you on this one. We've all made mistakes and paid the price. All of us, no matter what they are. I mean, all of us. So maybe not kick them out of UCLA, but sit them all year long. Make them practice and sit them.
They're not playing in any
I mean, I just don't see them playing in the games. So we'll differ on that, and we'll throw that out there. How would you handle that? I mean, what if you're the AD? Do you just slap on the wrist, guys? You messed up, where you're forgiven, get on out there and play?
No, I would hold them accountable, but I would say, you may be penalized for a certain amount of games, but not the entire season.
Right. Okay. I just don't see them playing on the big stage this year. I don't see them do it. And, Mr. Alford and company, they can make their decision. Now let's move on to a little political thing, because this is real-life basketball, and this is what we talk about. And I know we may disagree, but we're going to throw it out there because it's real life. And we're talking just like we would if we were on the street or in the gym or on the front porch or in the barbershop talking. Yesterday, this is Monday morning, we're doing this show. On Sunday, LeVar Ball, Daddy Ball, who I think is nothing but taking advantage of the TMZ sports world, says Mr. Trump did not help his son and the other two fellas one bit getting out of jail. And then Mr. Trump tweeted back, our president, and you can say it's right or wrong, I don't care, I should have left him in jail. Coach, what was your perspective in real life on that whole situation? I mean, I get it both ways personally. Personally, I believe Mr. Ball probably should have just kept his mouth shut in this situation, but he knew if he mentioned Trump, that Ball brand would be mentioned on every news outlet in the world. I believe he knew that, okay? Because he's doing no more than what Trump does himself.
Well, first of all, he accomplished what he was setting out to do.
Yeah.
Now let's look at it from another perspective. I really don't appreciate Donald Trump saying that they're probably not going to thank me for getting them out. Well, sometimes we do things, we don't do it to be appreciated. We do it because that's the right thing to do, or out of the kindness of our hearts. So, Mr. Ball, he accomplished his goal. He got his sons and other players from out of that situation over there. They're still going to have to deal with it here, but. So I don't really want to be doing a whole lot of talking about politics, because we definitely will be disagreeing.
We will be disagreeing. I understand. I totally get it. But you know what? It's like I used to tell folks all the time. It doesn't matter if President Obama's the president. It doesn't matter if President Trump's the president. At the end of the day, we got to serve under the same flag and respect the man in the White House. Maybe not respect him, but anyway, Mr. Ball should just kept his mouth shut. But I understand what Mr. Ball is trying to do. Mr. Ball is trying to build a brand and just keeping it real. He cares more about his brand and selling his tennis shoes and selling his wears and tears and all that kind of good stuff as we go along. And we can agree on that, doesn't he, Coach?
Yes, we definitely can agree on that. I think there's a man involved that may be worth over $200 million that might have some say-so on what goes on over there. You agree?
Yes. Hey, and if that man wants to back our show, we'll just reach out to us. Real Life Basketball on Facebook. Just look us up. Real Life Basketball on Facebook. Or you can always reach out on Twitter at RLB Podcast. That's at RLB Podcast. Reach out to us on Twitter and let us know what you're thinking. Send Coach and I some information. And I tell you what I'm going to do today. The first person this week that reaches out to me on RLB Podcast, okay? The first person that reaches out to us, Coach, we're going to send them a $25 gift certificate to somewhere, wherever in the country they're at. Easy enough? Can we do that?
Sounds good.
So wherever you're at in the country, the first person that reaches out to us at RLB Podcast, and Cody, don't be sending this to your friends and all that after you tweet this out, saying, hey, y'all need to answer this. But the first person that reaches out to us, this is our third show. Things are going well, and thank you again for all of you listeners that are downloading it. And tell your friends. We're going to be going on location and having a lot of fun with this. And welcome back to Real Life Basketball. Coach, we're going to go and have an interview with Stacey Davis with NYC Hoops and Rivals.com up in New York City, who is going to give us some great information.
All right, excuse me.
Oh, what you got, Coach? What
Darren,
you got?
let's go ahead and make that gift certificate $50.
$50. Hell, I ain't got $50 to give nobody. I guess you're going to have to pay for it, Coach.
First caller.
First call. All right, so here's what we're going to do. $50 to the first person that tweets in to at RLB Podcast. That's West Red, Cody, right? At RLB Podcast or Real Life Basketball on Facebook. Sends us a question. We'll do that this week. $50, and we'll find out what city you're at anywhere in the world. Folks, we've had listeners from Australia, Germany, Poland, and the United States. Heck, we need some from other places. So a lot of good friends and folks out there listening to Real Life Basketball with yours truly, Darren Sutherland, and the 25-year coach, Doug Lipscomb. But let's go to an interview we had with Stacey Davis with NYC Hoops and Rivals.com right here on the BG Podcast Network. And welcome back to Real Life Basketball with Darren Sutherland and Coach Doug Lipscomb. And on the Skype line this afternoon, on the Carriage Automotive Skype line, we have Stacey Davis. Stacey, writer and scouting director with NYCHoops.net and Rivals.com. Stacey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. It's a pleasure. And you and Doug have been friends for, how long y'all been friends, Doug?
Couple of months.
Couple of months. Doug, you know what, though, Stacey? Doug knows everybody. Does not the coach know everybody? Have you figured that out yet?
Well, this is how basketball is to me. Everybody is like part of the basketball family. We're all 2 to 3 people separated from knowing each other. So if I know 2 people, I definitely know 2 people that know you. And that's just how basketball is. It's just a big fraternity. That's how I look at it.
Now tell us, I've got to ask, how did Stacey Davis get involved in scouting and NYC Hoops and Rivals.com?
It was purely by accident. I was doing a class, a communication class, and he told me I had to do an internship. And I'm a New Yorker. I was like, you want me to work for free? No way. And then he said, go find something. And I saw an ad. My editor posted, Maurice Wingate, and it just said looking for writers to write for Rivals in the Westchester County, New York area. So I was like, I can write. So that's the one thing I know I can do. So he says, have you ever scouted like basketball, high school, and this and that? And I said, no. I said, if I'm bad and you're not paying me, you just fire me, right? And he was like, yeah. And so he told me, go to Mount Vernon, find out what school Kevin Jones is going to. So I went there and I met Bob Cimino, and I met all the boys, and I just, it was trial and error. You just keep learning. But I got my first commitment story with Kevin Jones, and he was going to West Virginia back then.
Nice.
And that was in 2007. And so then after that, it was like, I guess it was like a flood of people started contacting me when I started writing, and they would just give me information. And that's like the key to writing on my end, because we do a lot of recruitment. So you have to have a lot of, you have to have a lot of relationships out there. Relationships is the biggest thing. So you got to know who to talk to. Do I talk to the coach? Do I talk to the father? Do I talk to the mother? Who is the go-to person when you need a story for this kid?
Well, Stacey, let's get straight to it today and talk about what Doug and I have been talking about earlier in the show, one and done. We're all hearing rumors that one and done may be over with. It may continue. What are you hearing from the inside up there in New York about one and done? Is it ending? Is it going to continue? What do you think?
I'm hearing it's going to end. From what I know and from what I've been reading online, that they want to end it because they feel the whole FBI scandal or whatever and everything that's going on in basketball, the one and done is the reasoning, because it's the thing that's preventing guys from going pro. It's like, okay, do I have to force this guy to go to college? You know, like Ben Simmons. What did he do? He sat there. He really didn't do much when he went to college. He felt like it was a punishment.
Yeah. Well, because the guys go to school, September through the end of March, and then they're done. They don't go back if they know they're going to be a top pick. I wouldn't personally. I'm 48 years old, and I'm just calling it the way you see it. I mean, if I was gifted like that, what are the pros and cons of one and done in your opinion? What would you say the pros of one and done is for a player?
If a player is truly ready, ready to go, he can play in the NBA right away, without having to go down to the D League. The cons are, he's got a job. He's got a first-year contract. He can take care of his family. Maybe come from a poor environment. Maybe he comes from a middle-class environment. He's already started. He's way ahead of guys that have to go through the whole college system, follow all the rules that go with college. So the pros are definitely the money aspect. And then you can get endorsement deals if you are very good,
Stacey,
you have like some type of personality to you.
Exactly right. There's players right now that we both watched play in college this year, freshmen, that should have never. Well, they could have went straight to the pros. Mr. Bagley at Duke, for instance, could have went straight to the pros. Would you not agree?
Yeah, he definitely could.
No problem.
He definitely could. He has a brand. He's well known. He played out in Drew League this summer against pros. So it was clear, he wasn't struggling when he was playing with them out there in California. So it was clear that, foregone conclusion, he could go to the pros. But then there's guys that do need a year or two. So the only downside I see to this is everybody in the background, the adults surrounding the kid, are pushing him go from high school, go to the pros, and they can get the money now, So they're forcing a kid that may not be ready because they want to cash in early.
We all
so
think
that
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No. We all see that one and done is got to get changed. Coach, what's your opinion on one and done, Coach? What have you thought about it when you've seen, you've coached kids, you've had a player that could have, if it had not, that did one and done, but if he could have went straight to the pros more than likely and been drafted in the first round. Your player, Jaylen Brown, could he have not?
He could have, but also let's look at the fact that if he waits another year, he could possibly go up higher in the draft than he did this year. So if he just waits that 1 year, the draft may not be as it was this actual year. So next year he may be up higher in the draft.
But it's guaranteed money anyway in the NBA.
Yeah, but
and rookie salary caps extremely high. But
once again, you're looking at, just like Stacey said, endorsements. You get those a year earlier.
Gotcha. Stacey, do you see AAU games, you see high school games, you see the pros, you see all that kind of good stuff. With one and done about gone, do you see the pros? How do you see the pros affecting the high school ranks? And is there a chance we could end up with a level European system, kind of like the European leagues are in basketball, with the NBA and the D League and that sort of thing, outside of college basketball? Do you see that coming?
It's sort of like already there, because so many kids, especially in New York area, they leave and they go to prep school. The prep school scene, the national prep school scene, is kind of sort of like that. So you have all of these great 5-stars that are in prep school and that have left the regular high schools that they're at, because it really makes no sense for them to be there, because the competition level that they're playing against, so many schools, it's meaningless. It's a meaningless game. It's not challenging for them. And I could see a player being bored. At the prep school level, it's a little bit more challenging. You have like guys that, that are, your peers. And so it's just more challenging for the player. I see long-term that there will be special schools, if this is decided, that they will all be at. And it'll be a totally different, like the prep school system, sort of like that in some kind of way.
So in a sense, if we took music, we all know of, no matter where in America you live, Juilliard is the place to go for fine arts. What you're saying to us today is more than likely in 5 years, 3 years, 7 years, there's going to be specific academies that these basketball players from New York, Chicago, Atlanta, wherever they go, and that's their main concentration is to play basketball, to better themselves, to go professional. Is that basically what we're looking at?
That's the direction we're going in because it only makes sense. It makes sense for these high-level players to go in that direction because how can they remain in their schools? And I know people say, oh, well, they miss out on the socialization that normal kids do, but these aren't normal kids. Let's stop pretending they're normal kids. They're just not. I mean, if somebody is just naturally gifted, you should enhance that. You should create this place for them.
No doubt. And we've all heard the stories about high school phenoms back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and we all romanticize the fact that we would have loved to seen Kareem play in the New York inner city leagues back in the day or seeing Steve Alford shoot threes in the Indiana leagues. But it's not going to happen in the public school setting as we know it in the future. Would you agree with that?
No, it's just not. I mean, the system here in New York is probably, I don't want to say it's the worst because I don't want to downtalk New York, but it's not the best, It's just not the best. What? You're not going to get everything you need here in the structure. And then you have the outside elements. New York is still, they cleaned it up a lot, but it's still kind of rough too.
Right.
So they're not only dealing with just academics, basketball, then they walk outside, they have to deal with outside forces as well. So taking them into a structured environment where they can become more focused should be the best thing for them, especially a player that has talent. You don't want him to walk out of the school and then somebody decides to drive up or walk by and a bullet flies and then that's it, and that kid's life is over. And then we're writing a story about how talented he was.
Yeah. You're exactly right. That could happen anywhere. You're right. You mentioned this earlier in our conversation as we talked about one and done in the FBI's involvement. Who are the winners and losers in this FBI situation? Who won? I've heard different announcers come on. We had Dick Vitale who raised Cain about the UCLA players stealing over there, but then at the same time he defended Rick Pitino in this. Who are the winners and losers in this FBI investigation that's going on?
The losers are going to be the kids in the end because it always trickles down whatever happens. I think some of the coaches, I don't know if they'll put a band on them and they won't be able to, work in basketball ever again. I think that would be like the biggest thing if they did something like that. Like Pitino, they tell him you can't even be a high school coach, So I think somebody that has a true love, especially a coach for the game, if he's banned from basketball, then that would be, then I guess the coach would be the biggest loser. The players, because the players are steered by the adults, and they think they know everything, but they don't know everything. So they're just being led this way and that way. So a player that's misguided is going to be one of the biggest losers. And the whole FBI thing, it's very quiet. I don't know if you noticed, a lot of the media has zero real information on it, except when they go to court. The guy that's been running it, June Kim, he's acting. That's his title, acting, FBI agent. So if you look him up, his prior cases that he's done were John Gotti Jr., Gambino family. So he's used to handling cases like that. So to me, he's handling this in that same way. So he wants to make sure when he comes to the table, he's going to come to the table correct and have everything checked off. So I think basketball is in a lot bigger trouble than everybody thinks.
Stacey, will this, we do the show from the heart of SEC country, so I'm going to ask you this, and this is an opinion, and I didn't ask you this question earlier, but will this trickle over to football with this FBI investigation, do you think? You got any idea?
That's what I was told. I was told football was next.
So football is next. Who had
that's what I was told.
Who had the axe to grind to get the FBI involved with college and high school basketball? Who had the axe to grind? Do you have any idea?
It was the financial advisor that they had arrested. I believe he was arrested. I'm not sure if he was arrested or charged, but it was him. And then he started talking. And so then that was the direction that they went in. And so then I know he started talking, and then ASM Sports and the guy Christian Dawkins that works for Andy Miller, then they started investigating them. So the financial advisors, it's like, I guess it's like any other FBI case, you follow the money trail, because that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
So they followed the money trail. So where did the money go from the financial advisor? Who did it go to? And so then that's what they did. And then I heard there were wiretaps out at, the AAU events in Vegas, so they have information there. From what I read, it's been a 2-year process, so they must have like a ton of information that they're sitting on that none of us could see. So we don't even know. So I think that there will be more arrests coming, because nothing happens just like, okay, it's just 5 people involved. When it comes to basketball, there's just so many people and, moving parts involved. So I just see there's going to be more arrests put down the pipeline, and there's just going to be so much more to this case. We're going to see and hear things. We're going to be like, wow, we had no idea.
Stacey, let me ask you one quick question. This is Doug. Do you think that specific people were targeted in this investigation? And I'm going to keep it 100 with you. Every group of people, I've never seen anybody say that if you pick, say, for example, Rick Pitino, he's done so much for college basketball. I have nothing against any other head coaches, but it seems like all of the assistant coaches are getting drilled in this situation, and that's not how the case is going anyway. And some of the head coaches are saying that we didn't have an idea what was going on. So my question to you is, do they know?
I believe they know. If they spent 2 years and with the equipment that they have, I mean, it's not like it's the NCAA. The NCAA does not have all the equipment and tools and resources that the FBI does. I believe they have a lot of information, and the reason why it's so focused on the assistant coaches, I think going back to how that man did all of those crime families, you typically get the one person, you isolate those people, and then you show them, well, this is what you're facing. So, like the financial advisor, they told him what he was facing. So he said what he knew. So then they're trying to get this person to say what they know, this person to say what they know, this person to say what they know. So they can go after the bigger, fish out there. That's what I think they're doing.
Stacey, what do you think the timeline on this thing is? I mean, do you think we've got more to come out before the tournament of 64 this year? Do you think they're going to wait till after this year's season's over for more indictments? What are you hearing on the street?
I saw a tweet that went out from another reporter saying that the court case, they will go to court October 2018. So I guess we have this season to go through, and then maybe in the fall it'll be revisited. I don't know. But then again, I don't know if they're going to hand out more arrests in between, because they don't care about basketball this season, March Madness. They don't care about any of that. Right. They just care about, completing and doing everything. So I don't know. But if you give somebody a court date of 2018 in October, so then that means they're obviously looking to get somebody else in between that time frame.
Mm-hmm. You've already mentioned the kids in New York leave to go to prep schools. What are some of the bigger prep schools recruiting the New York area that you see? Because we see it around Atlanta. Coach sees it here in Atlanta with his players when he was at Wheeler. What's some of the bigger schools coming into New York, the prep schools, to get kids to go play?
I think it's really the kids that are here, because a lot of them end up at Putnam Science. That's like one of the bigger schools in Connecticut. A lot of the Connecticut schools, Thomas More, and there's like a couple in Massachusetts. it's like some of the boys, they go to the school that their friend went to,
right.
You know? So a lot of them want to play together. So it's a way for them, if they're in different school districts, also to play together. So a lot of them have been doing that, or some of them are on the same AU team. So they play together all summer. So they want to go to school together. But I can't go to school with such and such because I live in Long Island, he lives in Brooklyn. But if we go to a prep school in Connecticut together, we can play together.
Nice.
So it works out for them in that way. So a lot of the boys want to go for that reason. And then they want to go for the competition because they're tired of playing probably the smaller schools, the meaningless games.
Right.
Good. Hey, you're listening to Real Life Basketball with Darren Sutherland and Coach Doug Lipscomb. Again, we've got Stacey Davis on the Carriage Automotive line. Stacey is a writer for NYCHoops.net and Rivals.com up in New York. Stacey's given us some great insight on the FBI investigation as well as recruiting and what's going on up in New York. Stacey, let's get a little bit light here and talk about some fun stuff, can we? We'll get back with you in the coming weeks if you don't mind on this FBI stuff, and you can be our eyes and ears if you don't mind. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure.
Real quick, I'm just going to talk about this because we always talk like we try to talk real here on Real Life Basketball. Like I'm sitting here on the porch in Indiana talking, the coach is in the barbershop talking. What do you want to say to those guys out there that say, and please don't take this as a sexist comment because I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times. What makes this lady a great scout? How did Stacey Davis, how did you become such a good scout, Stacey? Apparently, you got to be a good one to have the job you have.
I'd say repetition, a lot of repetition, and seeing a lot of games. I don't think you can take on the title of being a scout unless you've seen like a few games and a few players play, and then see them play in different situations. Like just a regular high school game opposed to a championship game is played differently. There's like a sense of urgency when it's a championship game because everything's on the line. So, or you go to a big AU event, so the boys see all the D1 coaches lined up looking at them. So of course they're going to play differently, opposed to if they were just home and it was just like a home game,
Right.
So I think that what makes a good scout is you just really recognize, you see a player, to me, I see a guy and everything out there he's doing is just so effortless. You see everybody else out there struggling, trying to do even half of the things he's doing. Everything is just so effortless for him. And then you just look for different attributes. And then outside of that, after you're done just really watching the kid, then you try to find out a little bit about him. What's his home life like? Because that takes a big toll on a player. If he's going home to like a war zone, like projects or whatever, he may not turn out to be a great player because he has that whole environment to deal with, as opposed to a kid that comes from a two-parent family home, And then sometimes some guys just have a desire. You meet a kid and you see something in them, and they just have like this desire. You can just see it in them that they want to become successful. Like success is part of their path, and they're so focused so early on. They're just so way ahead of their years.
Stacey,
so it's just different. Yeah.
Who is, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and you can mention a multitude of guys, and I didn't include this question in our pre-questionnaire thing, but I want to ask you this, and we'll edit this little part out if you don't feel comfortable with it. When you walked into a gym and saw a player for the first time, what player do you remember getting that moment and saying, he's something special? Who was that player, and do you remember where you was when you saw him?
Who was it? I can think of. Well, I go all the way back to Kemba.
What's that now?
I go all the way back to like Kemba Walker days when he was at Rice.
Right.
When I saw Kemba, yeah.
How about
I was sitting on the floor with my camera and Kemba, yeah, 100%.
Kemba Walker.
Kemba Walker, he had wolf in him. He had everything. He would put the team literally on his back to win a game. He's just so relentless. Him, I could say Lance Stevenson, the same thing. They're just so relentless. they beat themselves up when they lose. That's how they were when they were in high school. They were just so relentless and determined as kids.
You mentioned two great AAU and high school players, but when we see these players, they made the pros, but they didn't transition to the pros at a top level like a LeBron and Allen Iverson, a Jaylen Brown or something like that. What do you think held these players back as they went to the next level?
Lance, it was growing pains, It was growing pains. And I think with Lance, it was just outside forces, the whole adjustment,
Okay.
But like I said, his will to succeed and to win will always, always carry Lance through life, no matter what people say about him, because he's very much badmouthed. With Kemba, even when I spoke to him when he first got to college, I said, "How did you like it?" And he said to me, he said, "Oh, it's an adjustment." He says, "Guys are bigger, And I said, "Yeah." So I think for Kemba, he needs to adjust. He just keeps adjusting. I think as he gets older, he'll become even better. And we're seeing it now.
You're going to laugh when I say this right here, and I want to know your opinion on this player and what he's going to do at the next level. But Coach and I differ on this guy. But how do you think Mr. Grayson Allen is going to do at the next level? Is he going to make it in the NBA? My producer's over here, thumbs down. What do you think, Stacey? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I like Grayson Allen, but he did a lot that rubbed people the wrong way. So he's going to have to, display some different type of personality or something.
Maturity.
But right now he's playing well. He's got Trayvon the ball, passing him the ball. Trayvon is amazing.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
No.
So he's got, but I don't know. I just don't know. I think he's going to be okay. But then again, I don't think he's going to be okay because he doesn't have, he has toughness to him. But I don't think he has that real edge. He's missing an edge. That's what it is. He's not edgy enough for me.
He'll trip somebody this year and get that edge back, I promise you. What do you think? Coach, what do you think? I mean, you are just a smiling as we're talking about Grayson Allen. You've never coached Grayson, so what do you think? I mean, what's your thoughts?
Well, my major thought is that he's going to have to continue to do what he's been doing throughout the whole season, for him to be taken seriously.
I like him. I think he had a great game against Michigan State. All right, Stacey, real quick here. What's your college basketball predictions for this year? Final Four. What do you got? What are you looking at?
I wrote them down for you. Duke, Arizona, Michigan State, and Kansas.
Kansas. Boy, you went with the top four, the easy ones. I tell you, I watched Dark Horse. I don't know if you've seen it this week, but Xavier. Xavier showed me a lot. I think they've got a shot at being an Elite Eight or a Final Four this year. Coach Mack over there's got them playing good. Predictions?
I know a lot of people have Wichita State for some reason. I've seen other people write Wichita State.
Yeah. Wichita does a great job, and I like Wichita State too a lot. What's your pro predictions? Everybody's sitting there saying if you read the Cavs and the Warriors in the finals, Coach likes the Rockets, giving the Warriors a hard time. But Stacey, I've got to say this: if the Atlanta Hawks can beat the Cavs aren't making the Eastern Conference Finals. What are your thoughts?
My prediction for the pros was the Warriors, Celtics, Rockets, and then maybe the Raptors.
The Raptors. Why the Raptors? That's interesting. You're the first person I've heard say the Raptors.
I like DeRozan a lot, and I just see him and Kyle over there producing something. I think they're going to show up. You know what I mean? I just think they're going to show up in the end.
Yeah, they do have a fun team to watch, and I think a lot of it may just be geography. We don't get to see them play as much as the other teams in the NBA. It's kind of like watching the Thunder. Sometimes you don't get to see them play as much as you want. Stacey, Thank you so much for your time today. Tell all our listeners where they can find information that Stacey Davis puts out, and let everybody know.
NYCHoops.net is the website, and you can follow me on Twitter, NYC Hoops, and the letter N and ball.
Stacey, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again on Real Life Basketball. Is that a deal?
That's the deal.
All right.
Have a good day, guys.
All right, thank you,
man.
Stacey.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks once again to Stacey Davis and NYCHoops.net. That's Stacey Davis, NYCHoops.net. You can find out more information on her at NYCHoops.net and Rivals.com, including her evaluation on some of the top high school, college, and AAU players in the country. Incredible insight, don't you think, Coach, from Stacey?
Yes,
I mean,
very intelligent.
This FBI thing, man, is going to get huge before we know it. And if you noticed, I like what she said, Coach, when she said, they ain't worried about basketball and when the March Madness is. They worried about bringing somebody down. And, man, we're talking Gambino crime family involved. We're talking various names of agents. It's going to get bigger. I mean, you got big-name assistant coaches, Chuck Pearson, who's a friend of yours, Rick Pitino. I saw him and seen him at high school games. This is only going to get bigger, and I'm glad we got Stacey's ear on the ground telling us what's going on.
Well, the whole situation, it's nothing news-shattering that this has happened. That this happened, but at the same time, I just hate that the families of these coaches are being affected the way they are.
One and done, like it or not, is going to go away. Stacey's hearing it's going to go away. I've heard that it's going to go away. Coach has heard that it's going to go away. When it does, we don't know. The NBA used to have an age limit, and then they were worried, from what I think, from what I've heard through circles, that it was an age discrimination lawsuit was going to be filed because of that. But I'm going to throw some names out there, Coach, of some players that went straight from high school to the pros. Tell me what you remember about them, if you remember anything at all. But these are folks that said they were good enough after year 2000. We're not talking the 80s folks. We're talking, in the past 15 years before the one-and-done rule was there, who said they were, hey, I'm good enough to play with the big boys, all righty? You ever heard of a guy from down in Gwynn Academy, Coach, in South Georgia by the name of Kwame Brown?
Very, very talented young man. When he was in high school, he had the body of a professional athlete then. I think what might have happened with Kwame was his support group was definitely not in place to keep things in order.
The one thing Kwame Brown will always be remembered for, Coach, other than being the number one pick overall in the NBA draft,
Listen.
He was on Michael Jordan's last team with the Bullets, or the Wizards, whatever you want to call them. But he did get a cup of coffee with the Philadelphia 76ers and the Lakers, I believe. So, hey, here's another kid, third pick overall in the year 2000. I don't know if you remember him. I remember him, and if you don't, just tell me you don't, and I'll tell you about him. But a kid named Darius Miles, 6'9". People thought he was the second coming of Kevin Garnett. Do you remember Darius?
Remember Darius.
Played for the Clippers. And he averaged 10 points a game in 8 seasons. But, heck, who's to say 8 seasons in the NBA is a bad career? I'd take 8 seasons in the NBA, wouldn't you, Coach?
Sure.
I mean, if you played 8 seasons in the NBA, unless you're Latrell Sprewell, you probably could still be living a good living 20 years later, don't you think, if you took care of your money?
You manage your money correctly.
You manage your money correctly. Here's another guy that came straight out that I don't think you've ever heard of, Coach. The 2004 draft. There was a big kid from Bakersfield, California. This is 2004. This is 13 years ago. 7'1", Robert Swift. Do you remember Robert at all?
Do not remember Robert.
The 12th pick overall in the draft. Swift played 16 games and averaged less than 1 point per game. Folks said he was a kid in a grown man's body. Here's one that I know you know, and you can comment on. The 13th pick in the 2004 NBA draft, Sebastian Telfair.
Super athlete in high school. He was phenomenal. Had the support group, the following or the backing, I would say, from everybody in New York City. Yes.
Adidas gave him a contract. Listen to this. You know what his Adidas contract was straight out of high school? $15 million 6-year deal for Sebastian Telfair. And his career, he averaged 7.4 points a game, 3.5 assists. And let's hope Sebastian held on to his money. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of money to get as an 18-year-old kid. Jonathan Bender, the 5th pick from 1999 to the Indiana Pacers, was supposed to be the original Kevin Durant, 7 feet and could handle the ball. Do you remember Jonathan at all, Coach?
Vaguely, I do, yes.
So, we can talk about LeBron James. What you got?
Just real quick on Sebastian Telfair.
Getting him.
Real quick on Sebastian Telfair. Last thing seems to be written about him. Gun charges, marijuana.
So, well, we'll leave it at that, Cody. Thank you for always bringing up the positive in these young men and letting them. But Sean Livingston's another one, 4th pick overall in 2004. Leon Smith, 29th pick, and I know Leon had a bad history. There's a lot of guys that's come out of high school thinking that they should have made it straight to the pros. They may have had the ability to do it physically. But, Coach, a lot of them doesn't realize what goes along socially and in the world when you hand a 18-year-old kid $5 or $6 million. If they don't have the right support group, it can be kind of tough on them, can it not?
Very tough. But let's go back to Sean Livingston. He's still playing, if I'm not mistaken, and he's having a really good career.
Yeah, Sean's doing a great job. And if I'm not mistaken, Tark out at UNLV was a big Sean Livingston guy and was talking about him. Then there's some players that we can talk about that one and done has benefited. John Wall, for instance, with Kentucky. Great guard for the Wizards. Great. Georgia Tech's own Derek Favors. You watch Derek play, Coach. I mean, one and done a good job. DeMarcus Cousins, one and done a good job. And there's players in college right now that are one and done players that's going to play this year and are out. I mean, Mr. Bagley from Duke I would virtually say this, Coach, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, could never, if he decided today that he wasn't going to suit up for Duke again, he'd be one of the top 3 picks in the NBA draft, without a doubt.
I agree. But let me also go ahead and say that in looking at the previous years, I would say that the bigs that have come out, one and done, have been able to last a lot longer than the guards.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
I'd just like to say I want to thank Stacey Davis for coming on and interviewing with us today. Her information was very insightful, and I liked the things she had to say about the pros and cons of one and done, the focus of the NBA. FBI.
Man, Coach, she had some good info. Hey, want to remind you once again, folks, the Carriage Automotive Group Classic coming to Milton High School December the 2nd with some great teams from all over Metro Atlanta, and you don't want to miss it. Some great high school basketball going on, and we'll touch more about high school basketball next week and as we lead up to the big tournament. But you got Rockdale County versus the home team, Milton, at the last game of the night. Shiloh versus Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes off to a good season. Johnson of Savannah versus Lithonia. Trinity Christian against Holy Innocents. And Jonesboro Cardinals against the Pebblebrook Falcons in a big matchup there.
I'd just like to say this. So far this season, I've seen Shiloh, Norcross, Gainesville, Sandy Creek, Pebblebrook, McKeachin, Wheeler, Meadow Creek, and Miller Grove. Those were all very good games.
Taking your home team, we're going to put you on the spot here. Taking your team, Wheeler, out of the mix. I'm not going to name Wheeler. I'm not going to make you put any pressure on them because those are good kids, and they follow us on RLB Podcast, at RLB Podcast on our Twitter feed, some of you great Wheeler players. Who's the best high school team you've seen right now play?
Well, I say it's going to come down to I've seen McKeachin, I've seen Norcross, I've seen Pebblebrook, and Sandy Creek is very good too. So.
You know, I'm a big private school guy, and let me tell you this: private schools are way down this year. Pace is down. Green Forest Academy got slaughtered by Grayson the other night. People thought that was going to be a big game. Number 2 Green Forest Academy playing Grayson. Got beat double digits, Coach. Talking about getting beat double digits. We made a call out, folks. We saw this online, and we've got some contacts with this coach, and we tried to reach out to him. Toccoa Falls College up in northeast Georgia played Appalachian State. And I believe the score was, Cody, what was the score? It was like 143 to 38, something like that.
It was 100 points.
It was 100 points or more they got beat by. And we tried to call the coach to get him to come on the show, and he didn't respond. But I was trying to find the good things. Coach, you were never in this situation.
Thank God.
Thank God. What was the score, Cody? Has it got it on there?
135 to 34.
135 to 34. First year coach. You're at a school. You get beat by 101 points, Coach. What is your conversation when you get back to the locker room with the kids? You just lost by 100 points. What's the conversation?
I don't think you can say much of anything, but like I'll see y'all tomorrow at practice. But I'd like to say this: if you're in that situation like that, I don't know. I would have to have the clock running time we walk out on the court, and don't cut it off. That's all I'm saying.
Just
okay?
run the clock. Just run the clock. I mean, what and to the kid that scored 34 points, congratulations. You played Appalachian State. You played at the biggest level you'll probably ever play. And the coach up there at Toccoa Falls, if he hears this, I wish him the best and a good 10 years. This is his first year, and that was his second game. Out of curiosity, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's the biggest loss you ever had that you remember just getting walloped?
About 30.
About 30. Who beat you?
I ain't going to tell you.
Must have been Norcross. Must have been
Not.
Not Norcross. Hey, our college game picks of the week this week. We're going to go around once a week and pick a college game. And again, we appreciate Stacey Davis with Rivals.com and NYC Hoops for giving us some incredible information on this week. But games this week we're going to be picking. We've got the game of the week Sunday we're seeing is number 16, Texas A&M against number 10, USC. Cody, we'll let you go first. What you got, Cody?
Am I just picking the game of the week?
Game of the week
okay.
right now.
Well, for me personally,
Texas A&M and USC.
I'm going to go USC in that one.
USC. He goes California. Coach, where you going?
Well, let me put it like this. Texas A&M, I got a former player there. He's a coach, Amir Abdul-Rahim. Then I have a player on USC's team, Jordan Usher. And Jordan, I love you, but I'm going to have to go with Texas A&M.
He's taking Texas A&M. Usually I would stay at home with the SEC, but I've seen USC play. I'm going with Mr. Usher and USC. Upset of the week. Upset of the week of all the college games going on out there. Cody, what you got?
I'm going to go Wisconsin over Baylor with this one.
The Baylor Bears losing to Wisconsin. You know what I noticed about Baylor this week? This is crazy. They got a 1-9 football team, but they're on TV every single week playing college football. I can't even understand that. Art Riles is gone now. They can't even play football over at Baylor. Coach, who you got as upset of the week?
That's going to be tough. But I got a question for you.
What's
Why
that?
in the world would Fort Wayne play Kentucky?
Money. Money. Because people in Kentucky ain't got nothing else to do but go sit in Rupp Arena, drink L10 or whatever that drink is they drank up there. Was it L8 or something like that? Some ginger ale drink.
Ginger ale stuff.
Some
guy I went to college with who used to drink.
I mean, just crazy. Kentucky folks, that's what they do. And I will tell you this: best steakhouse I ever ate out in my life is in Lexington, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. It was called Malone's. It was an awesome place to eat. I actually went to see Kentucky play at Rupp Arena one time. Coach was playing Columbia. Columbia almost beat them in that four-corner offense they set. All them smart kids had them beat at halftime. It was a game like that. But what is Kentucky doing playing Fort Wayne? I still say Kentucky's the most overrated team in the country right now.
Well, I don't agree with you. They're gonna be good. You just got to have a little time to gel everything together.
Yeah.
Upset, I would have to say I think Ohio State could give Gonzaga a battle.
He stole mine, Cody. What about that, man? I'm telling him, just riding my back, stealing mine. Here's who I'm going to go with and all that. All righty? Saturday, Coach, I'm taking your Alabama Crimson Tide, and I believe they're going to wallop the number 14 Minnesota Golden Gophers. I really do. I believe Coach down there at Alabama is going to whoop Minnesota, and that's going to be our upset of the week. Let's get real quick to the NBA. We got to get out of here from the Carriage Automotive Group, real-life basketball venue. Anything going on in the NBA, Coach, that you really have noticed this week and really paid attention to?
No, first of all, I want to give a shout-out to Jaylen Brown, and I'm sorry for the loss of one of my players, Trevin Steed. And our prayers go out to your family, to the Steed family.
Exactly, and we read yesterday in the paper that Jaylen came out, and your former player Jaylen Brown came out after hearing about his death, talked to Coach Stevens, had a good night that night. And I know his thoughts and his prayers were with his best friend in that situation. But we'll talk more NBA. One thing I think's neat, NBA gives Thanksgiving Day off to the players. I did not realize that until I looked at the schedule. They don't get Christmas, by God, but they get Thanksgiving off. So
A little backwards.
Christmas, they start at 7 o'clock in the morning, you know. Hey, once again, $50 for those folks who want to reach out and ask us a question via Twitter or via Facebook. Easiest way to do it. Twitter handle is at RLB Podcast, at the letter R, LB, Real Life Basketball Podcast. All righty? Just ask us a question. Or go to Facebook. Friend request us, Real Life Basketball. Folks, we got a lot of good things planned for this show. We're going to go out into the community, do some events, and who knows, we may be broadcasting live from a basketball game before long. Next week we'll come back. We'll talk a lot about high school basketball, the big tournament coming up at the Carriage Automotive Group Classic coming up on 2nd. And who knows who else will be interviewed in the coming weeks. Some folks like Dickie V is coming on. Jay Billis is coming on. And some other folks. Again, thank you to Stacey Davis with nychoops.net and rivals.com for her incitement and insight. What is incitement? What kind of word is that? I just made that crap up, Coach.
We'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it. That's right. We can make stuff up if we want to, can't we?
Put it on the shirt.
You know, because this could be fake news. People don't realize that, do they? This could be damn fake basketball news.
Well, we're going to keep it real.
We're going to keep it real, though. We could be, them jokers over there talking fake news, Cody. What do you think about that? Who knows?
TNZ.
TNZ. Hey, you're listening to Real Life Basketball on the BG Podcast Network. Thank y'all. Have an awesome week.